Our agenda for today, we are going to be in our coaching mode. So set your caps for that. We're talking about feedback in the evaluation process as well as in the goals process. And then how to take that feedback and really target and zero in on our professional learning. And we've got a feature highlight for y'all. So to kick things off, we're going to jump into the first section and I'm handing it over to the Paige Parker. Paige, what do you got for us today?
Good afternoon, everybody. And we're going to talk about several aspects of coaching or ways that you can include coaching using Strive. So the first is going to be something that's embedded in the evaluation process. So let's talk about walkthroughs. You can create in your evaluation process multiple tasks. So in my process, under walkthroughs, I have the t-test walkthroughs, which would be conducted by the appraisers. They might have some specific t-test related data that's being collected. That would probably be a baseline of data that everybody gets a specific number of that type of walkthrough so that we have that data to collect. But in addition, there's another task that is not a required task. It doesn't have a set number, and it can have multiple forms. You can add whatever documents you want into that in order to collect data for coaching purposes. So I'm going to switch over to a user. I'm a principal right now, and I'm going to go in and look at a teacher. And so I would go to walkthroughs, and I have this instructional walkthrough option, and I can select the document that I want to use. So I have three different forms that I can use for collecting data that would be used for coaching purposes. This top one is a t-test document. It is tied to the domains, but it is not giving them a rating of any kind, and it's only collecting comments sorted by those domains. The others have some different structures, different things that you might be looking for. This one, for example, is just going to pull in what did I see, and it would be related to achieving expectations or content knowledge and expertise, but it's just going to be that instructional feedback that I would be sharing with the teacher. This one is in our Eduphoria community if you would like to find documents there. I can also show you a couple of others that are in the Eduphoria community. If I go in to create one this one's called secondary rounds, and there is one for elementary as well out there. It was not created by Eduphoria, but it is in the community. And so it just has check boxes, things that you observe when you're doing an instructional walkthrough, and then what kind of classroom activity are you seeing? What is the level of instructional rigor or engagement, etc. So some of these things are related, but they're not tagged to t-test dimensions, but it's more of an instructional format and then a place for you to put your additional notes at the bottom. And then the other one that I have in my system is very similar. If I go in and look at that template, it's just called instructional walkthrough. And again, it's going to be just some comments. So certain sections of the lesson, what did I see? What do I want to talk about? What do I think they should consider maybe for next time? So looking at the warm up, looking at the objective, looking at the instructional strategies, student engagement, and I just have those three areas that I'm collecting information, putting in comments. So they're all just comment boxes, instructional feedback in all these different areas. So those are just some examples. If you have any um, forms that you are using, you can always build those forms in Eduphoria in Strive, and you can add them to your process. You just need to have a place or a way for those instructional documents to be completed. And there's really two parts to that process. One, you want to add the task in there and add any forms. So you can build those templates and then have your place. I have mine called instructional walkthroughs. I've seen some districts call them other walkthroughs or campus walkthroughs, but it's basically that same purpose. And then you would want to assign any instructional coaches who are not the appraiser but would be conducting this type of walkthrough. They need to have the school walkthrough appraiser role in the roles and rights in the management system of Strive so that they can conduct these walkthroughs but not view the teacher's evaluation data. So we don't want to violate any FERPA rules or have them seeing things they shouldn't be seeing, but giving them the ability to be a school walkthrough appraiser at that campus will allow them to conduct these kinds of walkthroughs and not see any other data. We do have a link here on this slide that you'll get after the session about editing or creating templates. So if you find something in the community that you just want to tweak a little bit, or if you build something from scratch, this article will help you with that. This is an example of one of those walkthroughs. Again, you can find more of them in the community. And then this is one that could be related to t-tests. I think I showed all three of these, and it could be collected by the appraiser, even though it is instructional feedback, or it could be added to that step for the instructional coaches to do. One thing that helps with good feedback is using a feature of Strive that's called scripted comments. So whenever you open up any document, you can get to the scripted comments. I'm going to go back for just a second and start one of those documents. So let's say I'm using the instructional walkthrough where I'm going to be putting all of this information in, and I'm going to be watching them, you know, through the whole lesson cycle. But I have some things that happen at the beginning, but then there are other things that happen throughout the lesson, and I might be going back and forth because of the timing and where I need to put them in the document. So I can open up Show Scripted Comments and get this comment box over on the side. It cannot be seen by the staff member ever. So this is my private note-taking place, and I can type whatever I want to put. Teacher said something. I can just continue to type. When the box gets big enough to fill this whole side of the screen, it's going to get its own scroll bar over on the right so that I can scroll my comments separately from my document so that I can line up exactly between what's in this box and what's in this box so that when I'm ready, I can just drag from over here and drag this. Okay, sorry, my fingers are having a little spaz. Okay, I can copy or cut. If I copy and paste it over here, it's going to leave the text in my box, but also add it into the document. If I cut from over here, and this would be drag and drop too if I had an actual mouse in my hand. If I cut it from over here and paste it, it will remove it from the box. So this is a personal preference. Some people like to keep their notes intact, and so they copy paste the things that they want to use in the document. Other people want um, to keep, just have the leftovers over here. So I'm going to drag some things out, and then I want to be able to see what's left over, what have I not used anywhere else in the document. But having this box open and being able to script lets me focus on just getting it all down, and then I can figure out where it goes after the fact. This box is available in all of our documents, in all of Strive, walkthroughs, observations, everything. So you can always open that up, but it's especially good when we're trying to get good feedback for the teachers in those instructional walkthroughs. Again, drag and drop will take it out of the notes and put it in the document. Copy and paste will leave it in the notes, but also put it in the document. The teachers can only see what's in the document. They can never see that panel on the right. You can also use messaging for coaching conversations. So within any document and within the goals, there's this message box. So you can type a message and hit the send button. It's going to put who wrote the message. So it'll have your name on there. It will also have the date and time that you put it in there. The teacher will be able to see this when they log back in, but as soon as you send it, it's going to send them an email notification that they have a message to view, and then they'll come here and view it. And they can respond to that message, and it will date and timestamp their response and put their name on it. And you will get an email saying that you have a message to view in that document. So the good thing about having the messages here is if there was ever a question or any kind of issue that you needed to pull in evidence, you don't have to go searching through your email for 15 emails over the course of the year. You can come straight to the documents and see where that information was, what happened, what was documented. It'll all be right there, and it will be date and time stamped from both the coach and the teacher, appraiser and the teacher. So whoever's involved, both sides will be able to put those messages there. That's a great way to have some coaching conversations or to respond to things without having to schedule another meeting. Any questions about the walkthroughs or the messages?
Looks like the chat is quiet for now.
Okay, so I'll take no news as good news, and we'll talk about feedback in the goals process. So I mentioned that in the evaluation process, you can give instructional coaches that role of school walkthrough appraiser, and then they can conduct those walkthroughs. There is also an option to allow them to view goals. So while the appraiser is always going to be the one to approve the goals, coaches can be allowed to see the goals for the teachers that they're working with and see all of the data that's collected there. There is a messages section in the goals as well as in the documents. At this time, only appraisers can do messages within the goal, but the coaches will be able to see those messages and also see any evidence that's collected in the goals, and help the teachers work with them on anything that they see that they think they can coach the teachers on how to respond. Appraisers and teachers can also add evidence. So for every action item that they put in their goal, they should have some corresponding evidence. Doesn't have to be a one-to-one relationship, but I should be able to look at the action steps and then look at the evidence and say, yes, they did those things. So teachers can go in and add text evidence, or they can upload files, or they can link something that they have on the web somewhere, or some resource that they're referring to. Or if you're using our system, the Strive professional learning side, to document all of your professional development, then they can also add in a workshop portfolio entry. So they can click on that and say, I went to this session and this is what I learned and this is how it's related to my goal. Again, at this time, coaches cannot add evidence, but they will be able to see all of the evidence that's added by either the teacher or by the appraiser, because both sides can do this as well, just like the messaging. And so that's going to create a body of evidence that the coaches can view and use to prepare whatever conversations they want to have with those teachers based on the evidence that they're seeing. And then the final step of the goals process is usually at the end of the year when they do a goals reflections. And we have a document in the community. It's called the Goal Setting and Professional Development Part 2 document. And the teachers go in and they use this drop down menu at the top to find their goal for the year. When they click on it, it populates all of this goal information so they don't have to retype any of their goal stuff, but they can see everything and be reminded, oh, okay, yeah, I remember doing that. I remember all this. And then they have questions to answer about their goal. How did it go? What would you do differently? That kind of reflection is good in helping them talk about their own practice and also plan for the future. How did this goal go? Did I do everything I wanted to do? If not, am I going to continue to work on this? Or if I did complete the goal and I think I was successful, then what's next for me? So this is a good last step in that reflections process with goals, to help with the coaching. So you would want to talk to the teacher about their reflections at the end of the year. Again, this is not currently something that coaches can see in the system, but the teachers could share that information. Okay, any questions about goals?
I did notice our amazing product manager, Shanna, did answer a question, but I do want to give a shout out for this question.
Sure.
The question was, can they link a video for evidence? And the answer is yes.
Yes. The answer is yes. They can link all kinds of things. Actually, that would be a file upload most likely, unless they have the video posted somewhere. But they can upload a video file, an audio file, an image, JPEG or PNG, maybe TIFF, I'm not sure. They can upload Word documents, spreadsheets, PDF documents, PowerPoints, whatever they have that's evidence for their goal, they can upload. There's also a section in the process for every teacher. So when the teacher goes back to their process, there is a section at the bottom called uploaded evidence. This would be for things that are not necessarily related to their goal, but it's evidence that they want to include. So maybe it's related to my area of reinforcement or refinement that my instructional coach is helping me work on, and I want to have some evidence showing that I'm working on that. I can attach evidence there. So I have something here attached that is an SLO document, I could go in and attach additional things, give it a title, write a description, and then I'm going to choose that file. And again, it can be any file type. It can be PDF, Word, images, videos, audio, anything that I want. And then I would want to tag it to the dimension that's appropriate. So if this was something related to my area of reinforcement or refinement, and for me that was maybe standards and alignment, then I would want to tag that to that piece of evidence that I'm sharing. So it can be any type of file, and you can have evidence uploaded in two separate places. The goal evidence will be in the goal itself, and then anything that is not goal related would be here at the bottom in uploaded evidence. Both principals and teachers have the ability to upload that evidence. At this time, coaches do not, but that's a good way for teachers to start building that body of work.
We did have one more question pop in. Does the summary keep track of how many walkthroughs each teacher has had?
Um, yes. Well, so there's a couple places where that can be seen. When I'm looking at any specific teacher, I can see all of their documents there. Right now, none are attached. Let me go find a different user because I think this teacher has some walkthroughs. So I'll be able to see the walkthroughs, and I can see up here that they have only one was required. They've had two already. So I can see that number come through. That would not be the case for instructional walkthroughs unless you have a number required. But if I opened it up, I would be able to see them. So um, the the counter right here comes from a requirement. So I had one required. That's why I have this little bubble. This one was not required at all. It was just optional, so it doesn't have that counter. Principals can also see that information in an activity tracker. So they can come over and look at the activity tracker, click on the right thing, and I could filter by walkthrough. So I could say, just show me the walkthroughs that have been done, and I'll be able to see all of them and who they were done on. Or I could go in and say, let me look for a specific teacher, and it would show me all the walkthroughs that were done on that teacher. So there are ways that they can see that. And then when I go back to the staff and I go to their cards, this bar down here is going to show a little tick mark for every walkthrough that has been done. And I think it's a 6-month timeline here. So as we get further in the year, there may be some that fall off to the left because we've gotten past that time frame, but they will be able to see the tick marks. And then on the card itself, it'll show the total number of walkthroughs that have been done on that teacher. So I hope that answered the question.
I think it did. All right.
All right, good questions.
Great questions. Yes.
Okay, let's talk about professional learning because we've talked about where you can provide some feedback in the system, but what other type of support do teachers need? And frequently that is professional learning. So how do you target their needs when you're planning your professional learning? One way is to look at student data. What is it that the students need? And we want to make sure our teachers are prepared to address those student needs. So I can use Aware to identify my low performing standards, and I can find, a standard that is across the board low performing. These would be different teacher groups that I'm looking at here, or different teachers' classes that I'm looking here, and the percentages of that teacher's students who fell in that range. So I'm going to look for the most red, and I'm going to find those standards and say, what is it that we do in training or can do in training that will help prepare our teachers to meet the need of this particular standard or this group of standards? Sometimes there's a cluster that's closely related, and it might be just a weak area altogether. And so you can identify those areas of need for students and then make sure teachers have the preparation that they need to address those. We do have a link down here for creating quick views, which is what this is in Aware, a quick view of all the standards at a specific grade level, sorted by teacher. So you could go in and build that quick view and then use that data to determine some of the things that you want to plan for your teachers. Another place that you can look for that information is, what are your lowest performing dimensions? So you might look at the most recent evaluation data and determine which area has the lowest performing standards and why. What is it that our teachers don't know about data and assessment or aren't using about data and assessment that we can help them with? And so that might be a place where you can go and look and see what is it that they are needing. You can use the filters to display it by campus, by subject, by grade, by year, all different kinds of ways. It's a dynamic search that you just change these filters or these display buttons up here to see it in a different format, but you can look at that data and determine overall these are some areas of need for our teachers, and that's a great way for coaches to start planning on resources for them, on supports for them. I can also look at those areas of reinforcement and refinement. So this is a document summary analysis that was run from the observation post-conference document, which is where they are assigned their areas of reinforcement and refinement. So I would look at my highest number here. I have 30, almost 32% of my teachers who were identified for reinforcement in classroom environment and routines and procedures. So, what are some classroom management or classroom structure topics that we can provide in professional learning for our teachers to help them grow in that area? We also down at the bottom have the largest percentage, and if I was live, I would be able to see that actual number by floating over it. But our largest percentage is in differentiation. So, what differentiation strategies training can we provide? Or if we've provided in the past, can we look at the results or the participation and see if there's something we need to do differently? You might also have some custom walkthroughs or some of those instructional walkthroughs that have different information. In this case, in the previous case, it was the highest number was people who needed to work in that area. In this data, the highest is the thing I observed the most. So asking questions and making connections were observed pretty highly, but think, turn, and talk was not observed very much at all. Making inferences was a low number that were observed. So it's kind of the opposite. In the previous one, the highest number was what we needed to work on. In this one, it's the lowest numbers that we need to work on because they were not seen in the classroom. But you can use those instructional walkthroughs and still get data that will help you to inform the needs of for professional learning. And then you can look at their goals. What are teachers writing their goals about? If it, hopefully their area of reinforcement and refinement are going to be an impact an influence on what they use for their goal. And so that data will be similar or will align with their goal data. But you can go in and run a goal and portfolio detail report is what it's called. You can run it for both professional goals, which is what we're looking at now. You can also run it for student growth goals and see what they're working on there. But what I would do with this information is try to find commonalities, like how many of my teachers are looking at 1.4 and working on that in their goal. And I might want to put together a learning track that relates to that particular area, or maybe clumps a few of them together in a learning track that will help the teachers find the professional development that will meet their needs. Okay. You can also look at what you've done in the past, and that's a good place to start. Sometimes we go in and look at what we did in the past and we think, okay, well, we offered some stuff there. Here's 1.4 activities, and it looks like there were several sessions here that were related to that particular dimension because you can filter by a specific dimension or filter by dimensions if you want to, and have it show you that information. I can either make it pick one specifically, or I can just have it list them all if I want to do it that way. Um, but I would want to then drill down and say, okay, we offered several courses. Let's now look at the participation in those courses. If we offered them, but only 3 people came, and we have hundreds of teachers who need to be working in that area, what can we do to boost our our participation? Did it have to do with time of year? Did it have to do with they just didn't know they were out there? Do we need to advertise better? But we can take what we did in the past and see how we can improve upon that to make sure we're getting the people that we need to have the training to come to the training that they need. So this is called a custom professional development report. And kind of like the detailed analysis, you can use all kinds of filters and sorts to get the data that you need. Um, this one just kind of shows you that it can be used in a lot of different ways. And this is how you would build it. You would go in and find the staff fields that you want. The previous example did not have any teachers' names in there, but it could have. And that would give us the number of participants that we had. So that's another way to look at the data. Or I might just want to look at the course spreadsheet export and just find the number of registrants. So I can look at a variety of reports and pull in the fields that I need to have in my report in order to get exactly what I want to help inform me. And then the challenge becomes building your courses based on those identified needs and then tagging them so that you can track that information. So there is, when you first build a course, part of that introductory wizard pops up with the dimensions for you to add them in there. And then if you want to, you can go back at any time. Once the course is created, you'll have this list of sections, and I can go back into the course dimensions section and I can edit or revise or add to those standards so that I know that when a teacher searches by standard, they'll find my course. I always recommend that every course be tagged to 4.3 professional development because that will make it show up for the principals when they're doing summative conferences in domain 4. And they don't usually have a lot of evidence for domain 4. So the whole professional development record for that teacher for that year will show up in domain 4.3 if all those courses are tagged. So when the teacher attends it and gets credit for it, it will go into a place where the principal can see it while they're rating domain 4. And then I would recommend, looking at the content of the course to determine what other standards apply. It's kind of a balancing act. You want to have enough standards to cover what the topic really is, what the content is about, but you don't want to try to tag every standard because then your data is not as meaningful. I want my data to be targeted, but I want it to be broad enough that they can find my courses. You can use multiple frameworks. So this is the t-test framework that teachers are using, and I would definitely recommend tagging to those, again, because it does show up for principals to see that they're doing it. But also, if you have I think it's Learn Forward that has a framework for professional development, and if you're using that, I could collapse my t-test and also tag some elements of that professional learning framework. So you can have multiple frameworks tagged to the course at the same time. And then you can also identify groups and try to guide your audience to the right courses by using those groups. There are some system groups that are built into the profiles. That's where it comes from. It's going to be the school they're assigned to, the grade level and subject area that they select in their profile. So I could target a specific campus, or I could target all third grade teachers, or I could target all language arts teachers. Two issues with the system groups are that I can't filter them down. So if I say I want to see third grade language arts, it's going to give me all third grade teachers and all language arts teachers. And that's really probably not my target group. The other issue with system groups is that they're dependent upon the users to keep their profile updated. So there's that. The second way is to create custom groups. So if you have a group that you're working with specifically, then in the management application, a custom group can be created where you list all of my instructional coaches in the district, and then I can assign them to specific professional development or send them, other communications. So you can build these groups yourself, whatever group you want to have. It could be lead teachers, it could be department head. Well, I have department heads on the list. So whatever you want to include, they do have to be updated by somebody. They're not tied to a profile. There's nothing automatic about them. So someone has to go in either once a year, once a semester, and remove people that are no longer in that group and add new people as needed. And then there are ways that you can add a custom field where you're actually collecting data from the users that you'll use to maybe determine if they need to be in one of these groups or they need to be targeted for some specific professional development. It's just a field that you would add and you would say, I want them to have to check this box when they sign up or register for the course. And then you'll be able to collect that data about them from that custom field. So those are ways that you can kind of identify the right people and guide them to the right places. You can also do that through enrollment. So if you use the course catalog for everyone to sign in, then they can look for keywords. You could send out an email and tell them what to search by to find your course. You can They can search by t-test dimension. So if it's tagged to 1.4 and I search for 1.4, it will show me your course. I can have categories set up. I can look by credit type or I can look by date or course type. So those are all ways that your users can find your courses as long as you are tagging them to the t-test dimensions or adding a category to them, then they'll be able to find them when they search. You can also email a link to any of your users. So every course, the first thing that happens on that overview page is it gets a unique URL when you create a course. And so you can copy that URL and use whatever email groups that you already have created for your teachers, for your coaches, and email that link to them. And then they sign in, go straight into registration, and you're helping them find the exact course because you're sending them a link to that course. And then the third and most foolproof, fail-safe way to get the right people there is if you have those groups, those custom groups that were created, you can enroll them, pre-enroll them so that they don't have to do it. You can go to the attendance tab and you can click on enroll or and add a group. So if you had a group of instructional coaches, you could say, put all my instructional coaches in here, they're enrolled, they get an email saying that they're signed up for the course. And so they're already put in there by you. You can also import them from a spreadsheet. So if it's not a group that you've already created in the system, but you have an email group for them, you can just copy all those emails and paste them into a spreadsheet and upload them, and that will enroll them in the course as well. So this is guiding them to do it, guiding them a little more specifically, and then doing it for them. But there are different ways that you can get the right people to the right courses. We also have something called PD levels. It's something that has to be turned on the general options tab in Strive. So if you don't see it on the left-hand side when you're in Strive Professional Development to create one, it's probably not turned on in your district. But when it's enabled, you can create a collection of courses that make up one of these levels. You can give it whatever name you want. Um, One of the things that I would recommend is that you have a credit type that is aligned with that level. So everything is always going to get SBEC credit, but if I had a level that was called, well, here's my annual compliance requirement, that might be one. And so that would be a credit type, and any courses that I want to attach to that credit type would earn them this level. I can say I'm going to make the requirement be 18 hours, but I might offer 24 hours worth of courses and they can choose any of the 24 so that they get their 18 hours. Or I can say, I'm going to make the 18 hours requirement and I'm going to offer 18 hours so that they have to do exactly these courses in order to get their credit. So they need a credit type in order to earn the credit. And then even though you can set it to say automatically grant the credit, it automatically grants it after they request it. So they do have to go in and request credit. When they go to do an outside credit request, it will show a professional development offered by my district as one of the options. They pick that, they click on the name of the level, and the system says, yep, you have those hours, and it puts that in their portfolio. It'll be up at the top showing that PD level with the name that you gave it. So again, this is a way that you can group specific professional development and users can go in and earn that credit because you've you've clumped it together, and then you can lead them to it or you can assign them to those courses. Categories is another way that you can kind of create learning paths. These are not as specific. There's not a requirement of hours, but I could say you need to take all the courses that are part of one of these learner frameworks in order to get whatever credit. It's not going to be a specific credit type. They're not going to have to request, and it's not going to show up as a path in their portfolio like the professional development levels does, but it will take them to a way to search for these are all the courses in the area that I need. So you can have a category called instructional coaching, and all the courses that you want your coaches to take, they would just search by that category in order to find what they're looking for. You don't have to have a credit type for this, and that's a bonus because categories can come and go, and you can remove a category without impacting anybody's portfolio. If you remove a credit type, it will remove those credits from portfolios of your teachers. So we don't ever want to remove a credit type, but we can remove categories. So if you want to, if you know this is a thing we're only going to have for this summer, maybe make it a category and then you can remove it and it won't impact anybody's body of work. I also wanted to mention three of our other professional development options in addition to, well, it's really two other. In addition to conferences, in addition to courses, we do have conferences which can be single day or multi-day, but they're usually concurrent events. So if you have multiple sessions going on at the same time, conferences is a great way to set that up. It has a really easy to use course or session builder. Everything's all on one screen. And you can also create learning tracks in a conference. So again, I could say, just show me all the ELAR courses and it would narrow it down to any that are tagged to that learning track. You can build these for each conference. So if it was, maybe it's a CTE conference, I probably wouldn't have these up here. I would have other tracks that I wanted them to follow. So depending on who the conference is for, you build the learning tracks that are appropriate, and that will help them narrow down the search. They cannot, I have to register for the conference, and then I'll see a place where I can click off what I want to attend. So I've already said I'm going to attend this one, and it won't let me select anything else. So here's another session offered at that same time, but I don't have the ability to sign up for it because I've already picked something at that time. I haven't picked anything at this time yet, so it's showing me all three. But as soon as I chose one, it would collapse the other two because I can't be in two places at once. So it kind of keeps track of that. Also, once I have made all of my selections as a user, I can click show only my schedule and it will take everything out that I'm not enrolled in. So it'll show me where to be at 9 o'clock, where to be at 10 o'clock, where to be at 11 o'clock. It's just going to show me each one of the sessions that I'm enrolled in. This view can also be seen from their phones. We don't have an app, but if they go to online and go to schoolobjects.com, they can log in. They can get to this screen, say show only my schedules, and it will display on their phone just the time slot and each of the courses and where they're supposed to be. So they can keep up with that. We do have a couple of resources down at the bottom. One is an article for setting up conferences, and the other one is a webinar that kind of walks you through the process. And then we also have e-courses, and e-courses are asynchronous. You're going to build the content online. So unlike a face-to-face course where they just use the Strive side for enrolling in courses and viewing their credits, with e-courses, they actually view the content within Strive. So it can include videos, links, documents, slide decks, anything that you have, you can embed here. So I've got a video showing here with some links below it that I would want them to go in and see this content. And then I could also, you'll notice over on this one, I have 3 chapters worth of content, and then there is an assessment. So that assessment can be courses, questions about the actual content, like the rules about bloodborne pathogens or what to do if someone has a food allergy reaction, or they can be acknowledgement questions. I have read and understand the content in this unit. So whatever you want to do for your teachers, I can add those assessments in there. E-courses can be configured to automatically um, assign that credit, and they don't have to request it. So with an e-course, I can say if they make 80 or above on all of their assessments, then go ahead and grant them credit. And it will do that without any instructor going in or any teacher having to request credit. If I viewed all the content and I passed all the assessments, it can automatically grant me credit. Or you can set it up to be a pass-fail course that an instructor has to go in and look at their work. One of the question types in the assessments is a file upload. So you could create a course where they have to upload examples of work that they've done based on the content in the course. Then somebody would obviously have to review that and mark it either pass or fail, or give it could be a percent score if you wanted to do it that way. So you have all those options in creating your digital courses, your asynchronous format where teachers can take those outside of the school day or even the evenings. You can also add district goals into your courses. That can be something that you track, just like you track the T-test dimensions or those other standards. You would create it in a separate place. It doesn't show up exactly the same way, but I have a place for goals. Again, this is a feature that has to be turned on at the district level, just like PD levels does. But if you turn on goals, you can go in and put your district's goals in there. You can tag your courses to those district goals, and then you can run a report that tells you how many courses were assigned to each one of those different goals. Okay, that was a lot about PD. Are there any questions right now on the professional development side?
All's quiet
All
on
right.
the chat and Q&A front.
Okay, well that's good, I think. So let's talk about, we did have a feature highlight here. This is a new-ish feature. I'm not sure everybody's aware of it, but we do now have digital sign-in, which helps a great deal with tracking attendance and all of that. So for your courses or your conferences, you can turn on digital sign-in. For a course, I would go to my sessions and locations, and below the location that I selected, I would check to enable digital sign-in. When I do, it's going to put a new tab up here that will say digital sign-in, and that's where I go to get, so you can see the digital sign-in box here. That's where I would go to get my QR code. I can print the QR code and make signs that I'm going to hang on the door for people to see when they come in, or I can download that QR code, or I can copy it to the clipboard and then put it in my PowerPoint presentation so that it's part of the first screen that's on the projection screen when they walk in the door, and they can scan that to check in. The QR codes are available 15 minutes before the start time for the course, whatever you put in the system for the start time, and through 15 minutes after the end time that's in the system for the course. So I could, if I didn't know what that QR code was and I just sat down and missed my window, I could go and scan it at the end of the course and still get included in the absence or the attendance. So it's going to scan that and mark them as attended once they sign in with the QR code. So it can be done for courses, and it can also be done in conferences. In conferences, this is what the setup window looks like. So it's all on one page, which is a little bit different from courses. So I would just click over here and turn digital sign on here. And then when I go to manage that session, there'll be a place where I can download the QR code or copy it just like I can for a course. So as an instructor or a session creator, I can turn it on and I can get those codes. As a conference manager or a course contributor, I could go in and print all of the QR codes or download all the QR codes for the whole conference. So if you're wanting to create those presenter packets that conferences usually have, where they have some information, door signs, all that kind of stuff. One of those things could be signs with that QR code on it that the presenter could post somewhere in the room for teachers or participants to scan. So there are different ways that it can be managed in conferences, but it still has that same ability of having people sign in and less work for the instructor to go in and take attendance. This is the export QR codes that I was talking about. Instructors won't have access to this, but anyone who can see the whole conference, which would be your conference contributors and your conference creators, they can go to enrollments and then they can see the export QR codes here, which will be for the whole conference. So a session, an individual instructor could go to the session, go to enrollments and see their individual QR code. A conference creator or contributor could go to the conference details, all sessions, and export the QR codes for all. All right, a couple of takeaways for today. One, review your process. That's something we recommend annually. Are the steps and tasks clear? Do you need to add anything to your process? And that could be adding walkthroughs that are more instructional in nature to the Strive process, or it could be adding different templates, or it could be adding professional development. But all of those things I want to review. I want to look at my templates to see if they're giving me the data that I need and the format that I need, or if I need something additional helping me gather that information that I'm trying to get. And then I want to plan for professional development. How am I going to meet the needs of those goals that we looked at, the areas of reinforcement and refinement? How are we going to make sure that we're covering those things? And then how are we going to measure the impact? So, are we going to look at numbers of teachers? Are we going to look at next year's lowest rated or highest rated dimensions from the evaluation process and see if the areas that were low last year have now improved? What are we going to do to know that we're actually targeting the right things with our professional development? All right, any final questions?
We did have someone ask about a certain type of walkthrough form, pre-made forms such as Get Better Faster. And my guidance was to check out our Eduphoria community, but could you briefly just, Paige, talk to us a little bit about the Eduphoria community and what kinds of things are out there for our folks?
Sure. So when you go to the community, I don't know if I have an account that can see the community. Yes, I do. Look at me. So I'm going to go into settings, evaluation setup. I would have to have the appraisal administrator role to get here. But when I go to the community and I go to the walkthrough folder, all of these at the top that have asterisks at the beginning of them are things that have been created by Eduphoria. So if it's t-tests, it's going to be tagged to the dimensions. When you come down to the ones below that, I could click on this 2-minute walk and see what district it came from. Now, the district has been blocked out. Um, this one came from Santa Fe ISD. So I can click and see, okay, I think I want that one. Let me see who it came from. And I'll kind of know if that's a comparable district, or maybe it's a district that we've kind of collaborated over the years and I want to go in and find their walkthrough forms. So you can scroll through here and see anything that you see that you like, that you think, okay, I think this would work for us. You can import it by clicking on this button up here, and then it's yours. And so once it's in your system, you can go over to the form management and I could open that form up. Let me find a walkthrough. Could open that form up and now I can edit it. So if I liked most of it, but I wanted to change something about it, or I wanted to add something to it, I can add new parts, or I can remove parts, or I can just rename things. So I can edit it however I want to after I get it into my system. So what's in the community, you need to look and see if it has, if it's from a district, does it have all the stuff that you want or most? I say if it has a majority of those things, go ahead and bring it in. It's probably going to be faster to bring in something from the community and edit than to build something from scratch. But you can always go in. If I go back to the form management, I can click create a new form, give it a name, say what type of form it's going to be, and then I can build it from scratch. So you can create your own. And if you create one that you think others would be interested in, then you can share it in the community as well. So that's an option for users to do. And then I did want to mention, while I don't know that we have a Get Better Faster one specifically named that, There might be some when you look at the content that are aligned with that model, and you could build one if there's not. But I did want to mention that Shanna has built a Bluebonnet walkthrough that those of you who are considering Bluebonnet and they have an observation form that they use, Shanna has built that into our system. We're going to get it in the community and it will be available very soon for you to download that one if you want to use that.
Paige, could you show that path to the community one more time?
Absolutely. So let me go in as an appraisal administrator. So I'm logged in, I'm logged into Strive. I landed here. I'm going to go down to the settings at the bottom of the left navigation. If you're ever collapsed like this and you can't remember what any of these little things mean, you can always use this caret, chevron, arrow, whatever you want to call it, to expand them out and show you what the words are. And I'm going to go to settings. And then from settings, I'm going to go to evaluation setup. And that's where the Eduphoria community lives. If you do not see the Eduphoria community here, go here and make sure this box is not checked. Because if you check this box, and sometimes people go, oh, yeah, I want to check everything, but this one actually disables the Eduphoria community, and then you can't see those templates. So if you're not seeing Eduphoria community in your list over here, go to general options and make sure it's unchecked so that it will be available for you to use. And then you can go in. I do recommend every time you go in that you click this update button or refresh button and get the most up-to-date things that we've put out there.
All right. Any final questions? Please pop them into the Q&A window or the chat. Shanna, any final thoughts for us today?